All right, friends, this is a restart. I was trying to make sure my phone was working. Right now, we're going to be doing the interview with Dr. Christine Hyde, who is a sex therapist for nearly 30 years. We're going to be talking about sexual desire, how to, what it is, how it's different between men and women, and also, here we go. Hold on just a second. I'm going to, oh, why is this not working? Sorry, guys. Let me see if I can get this to work. Review request. Oh, there we go. Starting. Okay. She'll be on in just a second. It takes it's. Oh, here we go. Oh, I'm so excited. Hi, everyone. This is. I'm good. So sorry, I had like pushing button problems.
It's great.
So everyone, this is Dr. Christine Hyde, who is a sex therapist. She is the founder of New Jersey Center for Sex Therapy, one of the founders. And Dr. Hyde, I'm going to have you tell us a little bit more about yourself before we get into the questions.
Sure. So I'm a PhD sexologist. I'm a sexual expert, and I talk about all kinds of things sexual. And what's near and dear to my heart is definitely menopause and perimenopause, because I'm in menopause and perimenopause myself.
Fantastic. So let's go into the first question, because we kind of reviewed a lot of the topics because you know the flow of I guess the logic of how to think about it. So first, what is maybe you go over sexual desire and how it may be different. Is it different for cisgender men and women, or just like for yes, you go into that.
Yes. So yes, desire is definitely different for men and women, right? So there are different kinds of desire, but the two predominant kinds of desire are spontaneous desire and responsive desire. Men are more spontaneous, right? They get an erection, it feels good, they're ready to go. Women are more spontaneous or more responsive, right? We need a bit of a warm up. We need a lead into. We don't just kind of go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. We need to get the oven warm before we're interested and connected in a sexual way. Very different responses.
So I love that, because that will lead into other questions. And that is regardless of whether how someone necessarily identifies them as a gender. So would that be more hormonal?
Well, it's not. It's more what happens when you're not in the early honeymoon phase of a new relationship, right? So once we get through the infatuation, where we're high on endorphins and norepinephrine and adrenaline, and everything is great and everybody does everything perfectly, and you're in a wonderful, happy, super sexual relationship. Once that passes and we're in a longer term relationship, then the spontaneous versus responsive is much more dichotomized. Then you really see the differences between men and women.
Okay, that's so helpful. So this might not be in a total logical flow, but my second question was, could you talk a little bit more? A lot of times when women are going through perimenopause, and then to postmenopause, how it feels like their libido has dropped. Like you might not have ever had thought about your libido in your 20s and 30s. And then suddenly you're like noticing either maybe you don't even masturbate as much. So talk about sexual desire in that context.
Sure. So part of it, I will say honestly, is just not related actually to menopause and perimenopause. It's much more related to being in a longer term relationship. And quite frankly, when you've done something a million times, it doesn't really have as much of a heavy meaning to you, and you don't think about it as much. When you know you're going to have 3 meals tomorrow and 3 meals the next day, maybe you're not thinking about, am I going to get food? Am I going to have any? So we kind of take it for granted. We get a little lax, we get comfortable, and then again, men's spontaneous raring to go sex drive doesn't change at all during this entire evolution. But for women, we need a lot. We need we need things like, how are you treating us? How do we feel during the day? What's going on? And we have to actually put sex on our brains and make it important and prioritize it to become sexual again, I would say. So it is something that's out of sight, out of mind. We probably could never have sex again for the rest of our lives if we don't put it on our brains, or if a partner isn't knocking at the door going, hello, are we going to have sex? What's going to happen here? So oftentimes it's a prompting from our partner that makes us realize, oh, wow, you're right. We haven't had sex in weeks or months or even years.
Uh, I really like what you're saying about that. So I guess what would be some of the strategies if we're not necessarily feeling it as spontaneously, especially whether it's being in a long-term relationship. And then I actually like that you're like that it's not necessarily related to your hormones. It's just that you've been in a long-term relationship for a while. So you could be 50 and start dating, and then you're going to be horny all the time because
That's
it's all
right.
new. Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Because then it also, I think, makes people not necessarily feel like they're broken.
And
So
they're
what
not.
are I love that.
They are
What
not
are
broken. We are not broken. We just feel and experience sex differently.
So, what are some suggestions or strategy? I know it's very individual for couples when you counsel, but are there general or general guidelines, strategies that one can, start using in their relationship if it's been a while?
Absolutely. There's a lot that can be done. I think the first and most important thing is really starting to take a look at what is sex? What does it mean to be sexual? I think we live, unfortunately, in a destination, get to the number one competitive society, and so we are sort of, so we're all socialized to first base, second base, third base, home run. And home run is supposedly the holy grail of sex, which is the intercourse, right? The penetrative intercourse experience. So when you will say the word sex to the majority of people, they're immediately going to intercourse. They're not necessarily going to all the things that are sex. So I think the first step is to redefine sex. So whether I'm speaking to middle schoolers or I'm speaking at a senior citizens aging home, I redefine sex. And I say, sex is on a continuum. It's not on a hierarchy. Anything that you don't do with your in-laws, your friends, your children is sex. So hands holding is sex. Taking a shower and soaping each other up is sex. Kissing is sex. Taking a long bath together is sex. Rubbing each other's back, snuggling on the couch. All of those things are sex. They're just not intercourse. Intercourse is one thing on a menu, on a very long and large menu. When you start seeing it as the broader picture of all the things that are sexual and sensual that you share with your partner, then you realize, oh, we are having a lot of sex, or we're not having any of that. And you know why you're not having any of that, Tina? You're not having any of that, Tina, because if you start to kiss, it means he's going to want this, or I've got to do that, or it's going to lead to intercourse. So I don't want to, turn him on, or I don't want to give him the impression I want anything more than a hug. So I'm not going to hug him as much because he may get aroused, and then I'm going to feel obligated or pressured to have intercourse. And if you think of it as a hug is just a hug and touching is just touching and everything is in a 5-course meal, you start to realize I can relax, my body can begin to relax, and I can start enjoying all the things that are sexual.
Is that different? When I hear you, it sounds more of a perspective from like that's what I would see on my side. But from a male perspective, is it the same?
So what I will tell you is they did a very large study. They studied men and they studied women. And they asked men and women to think about their hottest, most amazing sexual experience. What percentage of men had an orgasm in those experiences, Tina? What would you say?
Oh, I would assume if it was a survey about,
Yeah.
like, oh, your sexiest, the most best sexual experience, I would have thought that it was 100%.
All right, you're right. It's 100%. 100% of men had an ejaculation, had an orgasm in their best sexual experience. What percentage of women had an orgasm in their best sexual experiences?
I would think
Yes.
100%, 100%.
Okay, so I will tell you between 30 and 35% had an orgasm.
And
So
no, wow.
what
Okay.
what does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean? Does it mean, oh, these poor women, nobody's attending to them? Does it mean, oh, these women must be broken, their body isn't functioning? No, it doesn't mean any of those things, Tina. What it means is that women subjectively look at what the whole experience is. Where was I? What was he saying to me? What was my experience with that individual? You know, how did I feel? How much outer course or play was there? Those are the things that make sex hot for us. Orgasms are definitely a plus. I am pro women having orgasms. I am pro every woman understanding her body and feeling fulfilled. But women don't measure the hotness of an experience by the orgasm. So here's what happens. Men want to give what they want to receive. So what are men fixated on when they pleasure women? Did you come? Did you come? Was it good? Did you have an orgasm? Because they figured, well, that's what I'm really looking to get. And what do women fixate? Well, women have sort of learned that how does sex or intercourse type sex stop? Intercourse type sex stops when a man ejaculates. Oh, he had an orgasm. Well, guess what? As women and men get older, men have a much harder time having an orgasm. And so therefore, these couples need to reinvent themselves and reinvent the way in which they connect.
Oh, this is such juicy stuff. So in other words, if you, let's say you've been in a relationship 15, 20, 25, 30 years, at that point, it's a little bit more communication of what the other side needs, since it's no longer about the spontaneity of, a fresh relationship.
Correct.
So then that leads to, can that be, is it much easier done with a sex therapist? Is this a conversation that people should be having in their marriage? Just one, how does one, I guess, bring that, start talking about that? Because
Okay, so
you get in a rut.
yes, absolutely. So the first thing is you have to talk about it. And believe it or not, of all things, that's actually the hardest thing for couples to do. They have a hard time communicating about it. They aren't always sure what they need, what they want. They're fearful of what their partner might say, and they're afraid to be sort of shamed or to feel like they're broken in some way. So people avoid talking about it, not just women, but men too. So what happens is there's this sort of silence, tiptoe, let me try to rub your shoulder at night. Are you waking up? No, you're not waking up. I'll just scamper away and go back to sleep. And this can go on for years and years and years. It's totally unnecessary. Number one, if you need help learning how to feel comfortable about sex with yourself or sex at all and talking about it, practice talking in the mirror, practice having a conversation with your best friend, practice maybe even going to meet a sex therapist and have them model how to talk comfortably about sex. And maybe your partner comes in individually also to kind of gain some comfort level. Then the couple can come in and we can talk about it. And this is not long-term therapy, folks. This is 4 to 8 sessions, and this can transform your sexual life.
Wow. You have so much to say. I was trying to think of other questions because just to continue, I have a question that we had from the audience. It's probably still related to communication, but it was when either partner is tired, and I'm assuming this will probably be a longer term relation, someone who's been in a relationship for a while. What are some ways to maintain intimacy? Like maybe it sounds like one might not be in the mood, the other one
Sure.
is.
So I talk about there are 2 kinds of ways of feeling gratified in a sexual relationship. One is the pleasure of giving, and the other is the pleasure of receiving. And unfortunately, again, culturally, we're sort of taught if you're a good person, you'll give what you want to receive. So you'll mirror what you would like, which is obviously incorrect. And the second thing is one for you and one for me. Let's be fair, one for you and one for me. And I think that's a really poor way of seeing sex and sexuality. When you're in a situation where you love the person, sometimes you just want to give and enjoy the pleasure of giving the gift of the pleasure. And sometimes you're like, you know what? I'm not in the mood to really give too much right now, but I could really use X, Y, and Z. I would love a sensual massage. I would love a back rub. I would love a foot rub. I would love for you to just help me have an orgasm or whatever that is. When you start taking the pressure off of everyone has to come and everyone has to have incredible pleasure and everyone needs to be in this totally erotic mood, then you realize, you know what? I'm really not in the mood for this food, but hey, I'm happy to go to that restaurant and sit with you and watch you enjoy a meal. That's what it is in terms of sex. And having that balance in the relationship really takes a tremendous amount of pressure off.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting throughout everything you're saying. The idea of sexual desire is not, it isn't about, like you said, a transaction. That if both people come, then that means someone has a good sex life. But that there's a lot of more nuances, and then the points of view of whether it's male or female of what's sexy or what it is different, and it's kind of coming to terms with that, in especially when you're in a longer term relationship. Um, so we've covered most of the questions that I had. I don't know if there's anything you want to cover. We probably have a few more minutes. I just want to keep it to about 30.
Sure.
Anything you want to talk about? Are there common things that you see in terms of sexual desire or longer term relationships when people come to see you?
Yes, I think what happens is when you're in that infatuation phase, it's easy. Sex is easy. You know, both partners are often initiating, both partners' desire really matches. And then as you go on in the relationship, there is almost always, the majority, I would say 85% of couples have mismatched desire. That's a lot. That's practically everyone, folks. So that means somebody wants it and somebody really doesn't, and it's not, we're perfectly aligned and we want it at the same time. So what happens is many of us remember the beginning of our relationships, the first 2 years, the first 3 years. In long distance relationships, it could be the first 5 years. We remember that time and we can't help but like, oh, it's not like that anymore. And instead of grieving, I would celebrate, wow, we were so lucky, we had that awesome time. Now we need to reinvent ourselves. Now we need to bring some new things to the table. So women, sex is not naturally on our brain for the most of us. For the majority of us, we have to put it on our brain. So how do we do that? How do we do that? We do it by reading erotic books. We do it by watching erotic podcasts, potentially, or watching erotic films. We can also do it by reading sexual books and sexual literature. We can do it by dressing, you know, getting up in the morning and wearing the underwear that we feel is pretty and that we feel hot and sexy, and irrespective of whether anyone is going to see that underwear or not. If you feel hot in that bralette and that underwear, you rock it. That makes you and helps contribute to you feeling sensual and sexy. Exercise is huge. Exercise, movement that boosts your endorphins, boosts the adrenal glands, helps serotonin. All those things are really a good ingredient to feeling like sexy and open. If you're a slug and you're not eating too well and you're not exercising and you're not moving your body and you're staying indoors all the time, guess what? You are definitely not having any kind of sex life. Forget about a sex life with your partner. You were definitely not having a sex life with yourself. That's the other piece, Tina. Lots of women, we aren't socialized to explore our bodies. We're not socialized to feel comfortable touching ourselves, looking at ourselves. These things really need to change. I'm a big believer in how can I explain what I enjoy and what I like if I really don't know myself?
Oh, I love that. We have a question from the audience. I'm going to pose it. I would love to know how to handle the lube question. Most men think it's a personal reflection of them when you need
Okay.
it. I guess it's also because I'm assuming because also after you go through menopause, you know, our vaginas get drier and we do need lube.
Absolutely. So first things first, there is no stigma to lube. If a man is associating your lubrication with your desire, he will soon learn that his desire and his erection are also not going to match over time. In other words, he may feel super sexy and super ready and super thinking he's hard, and he's super not hard. And so what's kind of great is at this stage in our lives, I would say 45 and up, Our sexual bodies are changing in a way that's actually most aligned than ever before in our lives. So in other words, the changes with women actually match the changes with men. And so therefore their erections are less predictable. Like I may want an erection, but I'm not getting as hard as I need or want to right now. They can lose their erections more quickly. And so what I'm trying to say is, I know I digress from the lube question, but essentially men's bodies are changing too. So whoever asked the question about lube, it's phenomenal. First things first, anybody 45 and up should be using lube all the time. Not just
Yay, lube.
not just lube for sexual instances. After you go to pee, to use the bathroom, you want to pat your vulva, not wipe, because you're actually scraping the skin. You want to pat your vulva, and then you want to add a couple of drops of lube to moisturize your vulva until the next time you go and urinate. It helps keep the area hydrated. It helps with blood flow. You want to use lube, not just lube in sexual instances, but lube like not sexual instances.
Oh, that's so
With
helpful.
regards to, there are three kinds of lube. Let me answer that for you too. Three
Sure.
types of lube. There's a water-based lube, there's a silicone lube, and there's a hybrid lube. Hybrid is the middle one. Water-based is the one that most mimics your body's natural lubrication. The advantages of that are that it mimics the body most closely. The disadvantages are that your body's going to suck it up immediately, and you're going to need to reapply. So that is water-based lube. Then there's silicone lube. Silicone lube is the WD-40, the ice skating rink of lube, okay? It is super slick. It stays slick. You need very, very little bits of it, and you don't really need to replenish it often. Obviously, it's great. It is not condom compatible. So if you're still in a phase where you're trying to prevent pregnancy and you're not on any kind of birth control other than condoms, you don't want to use silicone lube. But if that is not your situation, silicone lube is also excellent. Small amounts last a long time. If you're like, well, it's silicone, it's not too natural, I don't know if I really want that. Okay, totally get it. There's hybrid. Hybrid is mostly water-based with a couple of drops of silicone. And that's sort of the best fit between the two lubes. But use lube, use it plentifully. And you know what? Here's a good little trick. If you're not expecting your partner to necessarily have oral sex with you, even if he does or she does have oral sex with you, ultimately at the end of the day, you can pre-lube before the sexual situation. You can go out to dinner and have lube on and inside. You get a lubricant applicator from Amazon. You put lube on the inside. You put a little panty liner. You lube yourself up. And then no matter what happens, you're ready for any and all occasions without having to break out the bottle every time. But I'm all about breaking out the bottle. Every night table should have that bottle, not the alcohol bottle, because alcohol will dry you, guys. Alcohol will dry you. Sudafed will dry you. All those things dry you. Lube is your bottle.
What I'm getting out of this conversation is everyone should be using lube.
Lube for everyone.
Every goodie bag should have a little bottle of lube in it.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else to add before we wrap up? And everyone, we want to do another, I think we were thinking about a mini series, right?
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
talking maybe next about orgasms. But
Yes.
anything you want to add to this one before we end our lovely interview?
Sex helps boost your immune system. Sex on my continuum, right? Sex helps boost your immune system. It's helpful for longevity. It helps you stay vibrant, energetic. It mood stabilizes you. It elevates and makes your mood. It's an antidepressant. Connecting with yourself or with another person is really beneficial holistically for your entire health. So please go out and have sex with yourself, sex with somebody that you want to have sex with, and have lots of fun. And if it isn't fun, please seek the help of a sex therapist. Sex is meant to be adult play. Go out and play, everyone.
Adult play. There's one last question that came in. Do you
Sure.
have any advice for dealing with vaginal atrophy? And this will be our last question.
Yes. Okay. So again, vaginal atrophy is when the inside of the vaginal vault starts to sort of close in. Okay. And depending on how long there hasn't been, I'm going to call it a placeholder inside your vaginal vault, it can be pretty atrophied. And if it's really, really, really atrophied, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's unbearable. If sex and penetrative sex for you is unbearable, there's a whole host of other kinds of sex you can have. And if you want to help with the atrophy, if that's your question, like how do I help with the atrophy? Using lots of lube internally, using the applicator from Amazon, as I said, to put kind of lube in to moisturize. Also, having a gentle massage with the pads of your fingers or a partner's fingers to kind of slowly massage the opening and relax the muscles will also be helpful. Some people choose hormone therapy. That's a very personal choice. I don't have an opinion one way or another on those things. Many are safe. For some people, they are not safe. So I kind of leave that up to you as to whether that's a channel that you're interested in talking to your gynecologist about. But in a holistic, natural way, those are some things. One last little tidbit, there are things called dilators. There's a company called Soul Source, and they sell dilators, which are almost like little small cylinders. If you give me half a second, I'll show you one.
Hang in, everybody. We're going to see the
All
dilator.
right, we're live. Okay, so here we go. These are dilators. They're itty bitty tiny. They have a flange. They come in really pretty colors, and they're different sizes. And you can slowly at night, you would lube this up. You would lube your inside up. You would insert it and just hold it. Watch TV, hang out. You should be lying down so it's comfortable. And you just leave it as a place card holder for about 10, 15 minutes. Take it out. I put it in, set it and forget it, and that's it. And after you do this for a little bit of time, you would move up to the next grade. It should not be painful. It should not be uncomfortable. If it is, you should not be doing it. Uncomfortable, painful sex is your body screaming, please find a way to help me and don't make me do this. So if that's the case, sex therapists are super well equipped to treat what's called vaginismus or vaginal atrophy or any kind of what's called dyspareunia, which is sexual pain.
Dr. Hyde, thank you so much for your time today. And we'll post about future interviews with you. Everyone have a great day. Thank you, Dr. Hyde.
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.